Part 1, The Return. I remember the day my brother came back like it was etched into my bones, like a memory that doesn't just live in your mind but in your skin, in your blood, in the space between heartbeats, because for 5 years, he was gone. No calls, no letters, no footprints, just vanished into the kind of silence that makes people stop asking questions, and then one day, out of nowhere, he walked through our front door like he'd never left, like those 5 years were just a pause in his sentence, and the world around me erupted with relief and joy that I didn't share, because the moment I looked into his eyes, I knew something was wrong, something was off, not in the way you know when someone's changed or grown older, but in the way animals know when a predator is wearing the skin of something familiar, something safe. And I swear to you, I swear I didn't recognize the thing wearing my brother's face, even if everyone else swore it was him. My mom dropped the glass she was holding, shattered it. Right there in the hallway, tears already running down her face before he even opened his mouth, and she threw her arms around him like she'd been underwater for 5 years and just finally found air, and he held her, smiling, blinking like he was adjusting to sunlight, and said, "Hi, Mom," with that voice, that same deep, calm tone my brother always had, but it was too perfect, like someone had studied it, practiced it, mimicked the way he used to pause between words, the rhythm of his breath. The subtle grin he'd give when he was trying not to cry, and even my dad, who'd taken my brother's disappearance the hardest, who stopped going to church and started drinking quietly in the garage, even he broke down when he saw him, dropped to his knees and hugged him like a man begging forgiveness from a ghost, and I stood there frozen, my back against the wall, watching them like I was the only one in the room who could see the glitch in the picture, the shadow that didn't belong. When they finally turned to me, my mom beaming through tears, my dad shaking with joy, my brother reached out and said, "Hey, Eli," and I just nodded, refusing to touch him, because I couldn't explain it, but something inside me recoiled, something primal, something that remembered the way my real brother used to ruffle my hair and say, "What's up, nerd?" and how this thing didn't say that, didn't smirk the way my brother did when he teased me, didn't have the tiny scar under his chin from when we used to jump bikes in the old construction lot and he caught a rock to the face. No, this face was clean, unmarked, like it was built from memory but not quite finished, and I stood there, heart pounding, trying to smile while my brain screamed, "That's not him," but everyone else was too caught up in the miracle to hear it, so I did the only thing I could. I waited, I watched, and I took note of every detail, because whatever this thing was, it had fooled my entire family, and I was the only one who saw the crack in the mask. Over the next few days, he settled back in like he'd never left his old room, his favorite seat at the dinner table, his playlists, even the way he stirred his coffee like a clock hand. But sometimes, when no one was looking, I'd catch him staring at me, unblinking, like he was studying how I moved, how I breathed, like he was adjusting, adapting, like he hadn't fully grown into the skin he was wearing. And one night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my room, slow and deliberate, pacing back and forth, and I listened, holding my breath, until the steps stopped right in front of my door, and then there was this whisper, not quite a voice but more like a scrape, like wind over broken glass, and it said my name, not Eli like my brother used to say it, but drawn out, warped, Eli, like it was tasting the sound for the first time. And I froze, every inch of me locked up in terror, and then the shadow under the door moved away, and I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, he was in the kitchen making pancakes, humming to himself like nothing had happened, but when I asked him what he'd done last night, he just looked at me, tilted his head, and said, "I was sleeping, why with that damn smile that didn't he reach his eyes, and it was then I knew whatever this thing was, it wanted me to know it was watching, that it was playing a game, and I was the only one who knew we were even in one. I started digging, looking through his old stuff, pictures, report cards, letters, anything that might prove the person in this house wasn't he who he said he was, but everything matched, eerily so, like someone had copied his life with surgical precision, down to his handwriting, his taste in music, even the dumb sci-fi novels he used to read, but it was too much, like a copy trying too hard to be perfect, no smudges, no errors, just a flawless reconstruction, and still, no one believed me, not my parents, not our neighbors, not even my best friend Mark, who used to idolize my brother growing up, and the more I pushed, the more they looked at me like I was the crazy one, like I couldn't accept the miracle in front of us, and when I realized something else, this thing wasn't just impersonating my brother, it was replacing me too, because every time I spoke up, I became more isolated, more distrusted, and he became more loved, more central, like he was rooting himself deeper into our lives. And I could feel it, like a sickness spreading, like the walls of my own home were turning against me, and it all came to a head the night I found the skin in the attic. God help me, I didn't even know what I was looking for, I just knew I had to find something, and I climbed up there while everyone was asleep, flashlight in hand, searching through old boxes, and when I saw it crumpled in the corner like shed clothes, but it wasn't fabric, it was skin, dry and papery and hollow, like someone had peeled off a human body and left it behind, and I swear on everything I have ever loved, it looked just like my brother, or at least the outside of him, empty and deflated, and when the attic door slammed shut behind me and I realized I wasn't alone. Part 2, The Skin in the Attic. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't even blink, just stood there frozen with the flashlight trembling in my hand, staring at that loose, sagging skin in the corner while the sound of the attic door slamming echoed through my skull like a gunshot, and the silence that followed wasn't the normal kind of quiet, no, it was too heavy, too sharp, like the whole house was holding its breath, listening, and somewhere behind me in the dark, the boards creaked not like from age or wind, but like someone stepping toward me, slow and careful, and I turned, heart thundering in my chest, sweeping the flashlight in a shaky arc across dusty insulation and spiderwebs and forgotten Christmas boxes, but there was nothing, just the attic, the skin, and that thick, unnatural silence pressing down on me like gravity had turned up a notch, and then the smell hit me, not the dusty, old wood smell I expected, but something wet and coppery, like blood and pond water and rot, and I swear I heard breathing, not mine, not heavy, just steady, deliberate, like it was mimicking how humans breathe when they're trying not to be noticed, and I snapped. I ran at the attic door and yanked it open so hard I nearly tumbled down the stairs, but I didn't stop, didn't look back, just bolted into the hallway, slammed my bedroom door shut, and leaned against it until morning light started cutting through the blinds, and when I finally opened it, the house was normal again, birds chirping, coffee brewing, the smell of toast drifting up the stairs, and there he was in the kitchen, sitting at the table reading the newspaper like it was 2015 again, wearing one of my brother's old flannel shirts like he hadn't just hunted me in the attic all night, and when he looked up and said morning, Eli, it took everything in me not to scream, because he knew, I could see it in his eyes, he knew I'd seen the skin, and now we were past pretending, past the game, now it was war, silent and slow, and I knew if I slipped even once, even for a second, I'd end up like that hollow shell in the attic, so I kept quiet, played along, smiled when he smiled, nodded when he talked about his plans for college like those weren't memories lifted from an identity that wasn't his, but inside, I was burning, plotting, because if nobody was going to help me, I'd have to end this thing myself. I waited until the weekend, when my parents were away at a church retreat and the house was just the two of us, and I pretended to fall asleep on the couch while he sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone, my brother's phone, his background still a photo of us at the lake from the summer before he vanished. Except now it made my stomach churn because I realized that was probably the last real photo of him alive, and when it got quiet, I cracked my eye open and saw him just sitting there, not blinking, not scrolling, just staring straight ahead at nothing, like he depowered down or was waiting for something, and then, without warning, he stood up and walked to the back door, slipped outside, and disappeared into the woods behind our house like he was being called, and I knew that was my chance, so I ran upstairs, grabbed the crowbar from the garage, and climbed back into the attic, not because I wanted to see that skin again but because I had to know if it was still there. If I hadn't imagined it, and it was, still crumpled in the corner like a forgotten balloon, and I got closer this time, kneeling beside it, forcing myself to really look, and I saw the scar under the chin, the one that thing didn't have, and the freckle on the left collarbone, the one Mom always used to tease him about when he was little, and I knew without a doubt that was my real brother, or what was left of him, and whatever was wearing his face now had taken him, used him, and left the rest behind like trash, and rage surged through me, pure and clean, and I made a plan right then and there. I was going to kill it, no matter what it took, even if it meant dying myself, because I couldn't let it keep pretending, couldn't let it replace me next, and so I waited, crowbar hidden under my bed, flashlight beside it, and when he came back inside that night, covered in leaves and damp moss, smelling like the woods and something else, something deeper, I met him at the top of the stairs and asked him, real casual, where do you go? And he smiled, a little too wide, and said, just walking. Needed air, and I said, cool, and we passed each other like normal brothers, like nothing was wrong, but inside, I was vibrating with the need to rip his head off and see what was underneath, and that night, after dinner, I followed him again, kept my distance as he slipped into the woods, moving faster this time, like he knew I was watching, and I lost him for a second, just a second, in the trees, and then I heard my voice, coming from ahead of me, calling, Eli, like I'd wandered off and was lost, and my blood turned to ice, because it wasn't his voice, it was mine, perfectly pitched, perfectly matched, echoing through the woods like I was hearing a recording of myself, and then it said, where are you? And I ran, blindly, crashing through branches, tripping over roots, until I burst into a clearing I didn't recognize, and he was standing there, no, not standing, changing, bones cracking, skin writhing, jaw stretching into something too wide, too long, and his eyes, God, his eyes weren't eyes anymore but pits of wriggling black like worms in a socket, and he looked at me and smiled with that nightmare mouth and said, in my voice, found you, and I turned and ran, sprinted until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, and when I made it home, I locked every door, every window, and sat there in the dark holding the crowbar like a lifeline, and when the front door finally creaked open, it was him, back to normal, face clean, eyes green, mouth small and friendly, and he said, Eli, you okay? Like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just hunted me through the forest wearing my own voice like a costume, and I realized something else, that was the warning shot. The last one I was going to get, because now he knew I knew, and he wasn't going to play anymore. The next night, I found my phone in the toilet, my laptop smashed in the driveway, my texts to Mark unread, my emails deleted, and my parents started looking at me sideways, whispering when I walked into the room, and I knew what he was doing. He was erasing me, piece by piece, until they wouldn't even remember who I was, and I had to act fast, because the next step, I could feel it, was taking me. 2. Part 3, The Thing That Wears Our Faces. I stopped sleeping after that. Couldn't afford to. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see it, the skin in the attic, the writhing sockets in the woods, the thing that smiled with my brother's teeth and wore my voice like a Halloween mask. I started writing everything down by hand, since my electronics were all busted and anything I typed on Mom's old desktop mysteriously vanished by morning. I left pages hidden in places he wouldn't think to look, taped behind the toilet tank, inside cereal boxes, even under the carpet behind the couch. My only real ally, Mark, still hadn't replied, and at this point, I wasn't sure if he'd ghosted me or if Noah had found a way to get to him too. Every morning, my not brother would greet me with the same casual "Hey, Eli," like he didn't spend his nights crawling through the forest and shedding human flesh like a snake. And my parents, God, they were slipping further away. I'd catch them staring off into space, eyes glassy, like they were sedated. Mom burned dinner twice in the same week and didn't even notice. Dad came back from the store with a trunk full of food we'd never eat: raw meat, gallons of vinegar, weird black mushrooms that stank of rot, and when I asked why, he blinked like he'd just woken up and said, "Thought it'd be good for chili." I realized then that it wasn't just me under attack. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just trying to replace my brother, it was taking all of us, slowly, surgically, the way a spider wraps its prey, one limb at a time. I had to end it. I waited until the next full moon, when I knew he'd go into the woods again. It always seemed worse then, like something inside him couldn't hold itself together, like the mask of Noah got too heavy to keep on. I pretended to sleep, then followed him, crowbar in one hand, camcorder in the other, taping every step. I figured if I didn't make it back, maybe someone would find the footage. He led me deeper than usual past the stream, past the old rusted playground, to a place I didn't even know existed, a stone circle overgrown with vines, covered in bones and feathers and strips of human hair. He stood in the middle, breathing heavy, twitching. Then he turned to me. "I know," he said. Not in Noah's voice. Not in mine. Something lower, like all the screams in the world trapped under a manhole cover. I raised the crowbar and charged. I don't remember the fight, not all of it. I remember hitting him it again and again, bones snapping like twigs, skin tearing open to reveal something beneath, something pulsing and black and wet. It screamed once, and I swear every tree in that forest bent away from the sound. Then everything went still. He dropped. Twitched. Lay flat. I staggered back, breath ragged, hands soaked in something that didn't smell like blood. And then he changed. Right there. Skin rippling, bones cracking in reverse, until what lay in the grass wasn't a monster anymore. It was my brother. The real Noah. Eyes wide open. Dead. His body pale and cold like it had been preserved somewhere dark for years. I dropped the crowbar. Fell to my knees. I'd killed him. Or maybe I'd just killed the thing wearing him, and this was all it left behind. I don't know. I dragged his body back to the house. Took all night. Buried him behind the shed in silence. Said nothing when Mom asked where Noah was the next morning. Sleeping in, I lied. But days passed. No one saw him again. Mom started crying at night. Dad just sat at the kitchen table, staring at his hands like he didn't know what they were. I packed a bag. Left the house before sunrise. Haven't been back since. That was 4 months ago. I live out of a car now. I don't sleep much. But last week I saw him. Not Noah. Me across a gas station parking lot in Alabama. Same face. Same hoodie. Same walk. He didn't smile. Just watched me. Then slipped behind the pumps and vanished. And now I know, it didn't end in that forest. It just started over. Maybe that thing never wanted to be my brother. Maybe it just needed a body. A story. A new face to wear. So if someone you love comes back wrong, if they say all the right things in all the wrong ways, don't wait. Don't make my mistake. Because the thing that wears our faces is still out there. And I think now, it wants to be me.